Hello. This is I, Elizabeth of Lore, and today I'm going to share with you some information that I have about trauma and specifically about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and some of the spiritual causes of it. This is a topic that is really important and dear to me because I had PTSD. I lived with PTSD for over a decade, maybe actually close to 2 decades. And it was really, really, really hard, really, really painful. It affected every aspect of my life in a really negative way and stopped me from accomplishing or doing as much as I would otherwise have potential to do. And I believed that I was going to have PTSD for the rest of my life because that is what I had been told in the Western medicine psychiatric model. That I could manage my PTSD symptoms, learn to live with it in a way that was relatively comfortable, and maybe be functional, whatever that means, but that I could never cure it, that PTSD was forever. And that is not true. So I think it's important to talk about the difference between holding trauma in your energy system and having PTSD before I get into the spiritual cause of PTSD, because those are two different things. So trauma can mean many, many, many different things. Anything really that affects you in a negative way can be considered a trauma. However, we are naturally more flexible and more capable of healing ourselves than we often acknowledge. And by we, I mean those of us with a human vessel, or who some identify as humans. And that means that, for example, if you experience, let's say, a heartbreak, that can be considered a trauma, but often we, depending on the circumstances and the nature of the heartbreak, but often we can naturally recover from that without having to do anything particularly demanding, right? This is also true of maybe a disappointment, like, you don't get that job you wanted or whatnot, right? So our energy system will naturally realign itself. We can become disaligned by these kinds of traumas, but our energy system will naturally realign itself, and sometimes that is almost immediate, and sometimes it takes a little more time, but it's just a natural process that happens on its own. And then sometimes there are traumas that affect us more deeply. I suppose in some cases this could also mean a heartbreak, depending on the nature and severity of the heartbreak, but also things that people more typically classify as trauma, such as an assault or a very serious accident or something like that. And when things like that happen that have a really negative impact on our sense of safety or our sense of self, or they're just very jarring, heavy, dense experiences, the energy from that experience can get trapped in our system, right? It can disalign our own natural healing energy to the point that it's not able to flow properly, that it's not able to do its thing properly, and it can get stuck in the energy system. And sometimes this can cause PTSD-like symptoms. So it can cause you to feel withdrawn, or to feel very anxious, or to feel like fixated on the event and things like that. However, this type of thing, when it's just a matter of trauma energy being trapped in your system, that's relatively easy to fix. The problem is that in this society, in Western society, the society that I'm living in, we aren't really taught that. That's not how we approach things typically. We aren't taught to clear our energy system, right? So a lot of times we'll let that energy just stay there because we don't know any better, or we don't have the tools to clean it, and then it festers there, and then it can feel really disordered, or it can feel like there's something really wrong with us and we're not able to fix it. However, if we were just to do some kind of energetic cleansing practice and get that energy out of our system, we would actually feel much better. And this can be something as simple as maybe using sage or copal, doing a smoke cleanse. Tobacco is really good smoke cleanse. I don't mean a cigarette, I mean ceremonial tobacco, or a cleansing with salt. If it was kind of stickier, denser experience, and that energy is a little denser, you may need something a little more intense, like a heat cleanse, like a sweat lodge, or even a bathhouse, or something like kambo, or something, rape, something that can cause a purge, right? And help you get the energy out. But ultimately, and sometimes it may take more than one session or more than one of these tools combined, but ultimately you can essentially get rid of the trauma energy. If you're not able to naturally heal and integrate it on your own, you can get rid of it. You can cleanse it out, right? And then there's PTSD. So a lot of times with PTSD, if not every time, probably every time with PTSD, you do also have trauma in your energy system that gets stuck there. So cleansings are needed, right? However, what I realized, what I experienced and discovered is that when you have PTSD, when you really have PTSD, as in nothing you do really helps, and you have these severe symptoms where you'll almost like feel like you're back in that experience and you cannot stop, and there's just it's like you feel like maybe you're gonna die all the time, like your death is just around the corner, and you stop feeling positive emotions, like your emotional experience is extremely blunted to the point that you may feel very few positive emotions or none, but you can feel negative emotions. And you might get flashbacks, like literal flashbacks where you don't know where you are and you're reliving that experience, or it could be more like energetic or emotional flashbacks where you do realize that you're in the here and now, but you can't help but feel the same intense panic and fear or whatnot that you felt during that experience. You can get very withdrawn, afraid of people, or just afraid of nothing in particular, but just afraid. Those are just some of the symptoms of PTSD. And this goes on for a long time, right? It doesn't go away over time. It doesn't get better over time. It does not mend itself. This is a soul fracture. So what that means is that a piece of your own soul, your own energy signature, you, who you are, your being, has become trapped somewhere else in another time and place, right, where the trauma occurred. So this is actually very often when people experience ghosts, many times what they're actually experiencing is not necessarily someone who passed away. Sometimes it is someone who passed away. That exists. But sometimes it's actually a piece of someone's soul that has been trapped in a traumatic experience, in the place where they experienced a severe trauma, and that piece of their soul fragmented and got stuck there, right? It's like being held there. So I experienced this through my own trauma, and I've also interacted with the ghosts of other people's trauma that I've discovered in locations. In particular, I interacted and helped the ghosts of a mother who had lost her child in a sudden traumatic way at a location. And when I experienced this, I just felt that energy, and channeled the information and interacted with the spirit and helped the spirit move. But I was later able to confirm through news articles that this event that I had channeled had in fact occurred. And then my personal experience, I was aided by ayahuasca. So the first time I drank ayahuasca, or actually it was yahe, which is like a Colombian brew of ayahuasca. And the first time I drank it, I was there, I was having my experience. I kept getting a message that I needed to get up and go to the bathroom, but I was resisting it for a while because on the one hand, I didn't feel like I needed to use the toilet, and on the other hand, I didn't really know if I could walk. But I kept getting the message. Like, it was very persistent, and eventually I felt that I could walk, and I got up and I went to the bathroom. And as soon as I touched the doorknob and opened the door, I felt a portal open to a place where I experienced a severe trauma, and it was a place that was that had been fixated in my mind. I often would feel still connected to that place, and I didn't really understand why. And I felt that even though I had experienced many other traumas, because I was in an abusive relationship for about 4 years, and so that whole 4 years was traumatic, there was just something about this one particular incident that just felt very significant to me, even though the actual events of the incident were very similar to many other traumatic events I experienced with this person. But anyway, in the ayahuasca experience, when I opened that door, I felt a portal open to the door of that motel room, and I felt my spirit return. It was like my spirit, not light, my spirit had been trapped in that room, and the ayahuasca helped me to reaccess my spirit. And after that, I didn't have PTSD. Like, I still had trauma in my energy system because I've experienced a lot of trauma in my life. It's been a process to clear it out. And I still would experience symptoms of trauma, but not symptoms of PTSD. So they weren't severe. They weren't so intense and overwhelming that I couldn't function. They were able to be healed. They were able to be moved, whereas the PTSD had always been a stagnant experience that was just intense, and nothing I did really helped. And I haven't had PTSD again since that. It's been several years now. So I had that piece of my soul returned. And even though I still had trauma to work through, I didn't have PTSD anymore because my soul was no longer fragmented, right? So PTSD is really, it's a fragmentation of the soul, and that is why people with PTSD feel so lost, feel so incomplete, feel like they're gonna die, or like there's just something wrong, something missing. It's almost hard to describe, but it's like just there is no future because you are not whole, but you can become whole, right? That piece of your soul can be returned to you. And it doesn't have to be through something like yahe or ayahuasca, right? If you feel called to that medicine, I highly recommend it. With a shaman, with a proper shaman. But not everyone feels that call. And there are people who do soul retrieval work, who they specialize in that. They know how to do that, and they do it. And there, it could possibly, if you're a powerful channeler, you could possibly do it yourself and call that soul fragment back to yourself, right? Open that portal for yourself. So there are different ways to retrieve that piece of your soul. And the message that I really want to get through is that if you have PTSD, it's not something that you have to live with forever. And in fact, it is a relatively simple solution, because now that you know this, you can, even if you don't feel that you could call it in on your own, maybe you don't feel called to ayahuasca, or you don't know anyone who serves ayahuasca, maybe you don't know any soul retrieval practitioners, or you're skeptical, or whatever it is, you can literally say, okay, I am calling this in. I would like my soul fragment returned to me, and the universe will open that and bring that to you. Just because now you know it and you're open to it and you're ready. If you say, I want this, I want to, whoever or whatever can help me get this back, I want that, the universe will bring it to you. You can say that right now, and the universe will bring it to you. And then, yes, there's still the work of working through other traumas that you've experienced, maybe some of the psychological effects or impacts of whatever it was that caused the soul fragmentation. You will still have to work through that. It's not all going to be instantaneously healed by having your soul returned to you, but it's something that you can heal. It suddenly is manageable. You feel intact. It's something that you can clear from your system. It's something that you can work through in your mind. It's something that you can actually do something about and not have to carry in this really, really heavy way forever. I mean, I can tell you that I used to feel like I could never forgive the person who hurt me, and that I wanted to die, and that life was just not worth living. And I could not stop thinking about what had happened to me, and it was basically the thing that defined me. And none of those things are true anymore. And it's because the reason that I had all of that animosity and all of that anger and all of that just feeling so attached to what happened was because I needed that piece of my soul back. I needed my soul to be whole, right? And together. So once you retrieve that, yes, there's still difficult things to work through, but it's just easier. It's just better. It's something you're able to work through and let go of and move on from. So that's the message, that PTSD is the result of soul fragmentation. It's possible you could have multiple soul fragmentations if you experienced multiple traumas, and you may need to call your soul back from each of them, but that's okay. That's something you can do. It can be resolved, it can be healed, and then the rest of the healing work, the cleansing of the energy system, the working through of the mental aspects of it become really doable. Maybe they take time, but they're doable, and you don't have to live in that horrific way that PTSD causes forever, because you have yourself back. I've done it. I'm speaking as someone who's actually lived this and done it. You can do it too. Okay, that's the message. Elizabeth of Lore here with one final message. If you liked the video, if you found it helpful, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button so you can catch more of this content. If you know someone who might benefit from it, please share it with them. All these things are free for you to do and help me out a lot. Thank you.